Bass Case 025 Practicing, Part 1. I'm your host, Phil. Last two episodes I talked about practicing slowly, and I demonstrated practicing at 60 beats per minute, and I posted a video of tenor saxophonist Bob Reynolds talking about practicing at 60, and I've actually watched that video too a few times. And I and other people like to call it deliberate practice. You're taking the time to learn something. You know, people such as Robert Pirsig, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's a good book to read. It has nothing to do with music. It doesn't have much to do with motorcycle maintenance. That's how the dude that introduced it to me said. Kenny Werner, Effortless Mastery, Barry Green, and Tim Galway of Inner Game series, they all concur that slow, deliberate practice is the key to learning things, learning them correctly and getting them down. You do not slow yourself down if you slow yourself down. It doesn't take longer if you do it. You're actually taking longer if you go too fast. I really believe that. Learning it faster is not going to save time. It's just an act of impatience. And impatient people, from my perspective, and sometimes I can be very impatient at Kroger, right? And I've been impatient a number of times in my life, and it doesn't make anything work faster. It actually just makes it go slower. You receive impatient people, as I was thinking about this, that you receive short gains. In the case of practicing music, you're likely to be able to play a line, but only at one tempo, and you can only perform it part of the time. And you're just shooting yourself in the foot, if you want to use another colloquialism. You've likely heard the term mindfulness bandied about for several years now. You know, the idea of a Zen-like state, or and particularly we've been hearing it particularly because digital technology, you know, has been so prominent in tongue-in-cheek here, virtually everyone's life, right? And that everybody, generally the idea that people are so attached to their phones and devices, only part of their attention is on a person or a speaker or a movie they're watching and so on. And that works the same for musicians practicing their music. And yeah, you should definitely turn the phone off when practicing. But I'm talking about a mindfulness at another level. And I'm talking about slowing things down and being mindful of what it is you're practicing. And practicing at 60 puts us into that space. But that's just one concept of practicing at 60, and practicing slowly and practicing deliberately. You know, how do you practice? You know, I rack my brain thinking about what I learned about practicing when studying at the college level. And I can't come up with a lot, but I was still able to get through a lot of it by doing the same thing, and that meant playing something over and over again until I felt comfortable with it. And sometimes it went well, and sometimes it did not go so well. But there's obviously more to it than that, you know, just doing things repetitiously. Repetition is a big part of practice, but we have to have a more structured approach, you know. And part of it is that it's easy to be underprepared, you know, and say, I've got a job, or I was busy this week, and I've got a lot going on right now. But the reality is that we all have the same amount of hours, right? 160 hours in 1 week. And we have to budget those hours to make everything work right, you know, including your practice time. That's your time, you know, and how do you do that? You know, I was thinking about this pithy saying. I don't know if I heard it or if it came to me. I just can't believe it. But take your time. Don't let time take you. I think having unlimited time at your disposal is the worst thing for practicing. I've had those where I had the day off and then nothing got done. I'm trying to figure that out, you know. And then when I had a limited amount of time, it really worked for me. I had 30 minutes between students, and I thought, I'm going to run this. And here's another thing, you know, that really dovetails in it. If you only have 20 minutes a day to practice, that's it. That's your time. Do that. Don't throw up your hands and say, I didn't have time to practice when there was 20 minutes sitting there because you missed it. But you've got to use it to the max. And how do you do that? You know, part of what gets in the way is, and there's that reflex of moving too fast, you know, trying to do too much. I want to practice, you know, rhythm changes, and I want to practice the blues, and I want to practice Softly as in the Morning Sunrise, and you're like, stop it, you know. this we've got to slow this down. You know, you may want to practice all your bass lines, your soloing, your heads, and do it over more than one tune at different tempos. And in a lot of cases, like Kenny Warner says in his book, you attempt to do that, it's overwhelming, and it may lead you to not even feel like practicing, and it may even lead you to not practicing. You just don't have the headspace for it. It doesn't feel right. And the solution is both easy and difficult at the same time. You know, it's like that old Greek theme in the old myths, and you know, it was, you got to go do this, and it's always something you don't want to do. And one of them is cutting back on all the concepts you're trying to improve and just focusing on one, you know. But that reflex will kick in. I need to be working on more stuff, you know, more, right? Think about that commercial, and they had that family, the Moores, you know, and they wanted more of everything, including more internet speed and everything. Bigger cars, more everything. That's what we're kind of set like that, you know. And you start thinking, and I'm quoting something that I heard somebody say, I'm not really practicing unless I'm working on multiple items. And I'm thinking, no, you're not really practicing if you're working on multiple items. You're just superficially touching on things. And if you're not feeling good about your practicing, you've got to break out of that. You want to feel good about your practice. You got to feel like you're getting something done. Practicing is about progressing, you know, however slowly. It's not about hacking away at the same thing every day or playing the things that make you feel good. And I don't want to work on several tunes at one time. I've lost my patience with that. I don't even want to work on more than one tune in a week, and I might take more than 2 weeks for that. And I'll take, but I'll line it up in my practice log, and I call it TOW, the tune of the week. But when I grab it, you know, let's say I'm looking at, you know, I just mentioned Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. You know, that's a great tune for, I like playing bass over that. I like soloing over it. But I don't want to work on all aspects of it. I want to work on the head, you know. Maybe one day I'm just going to work on the head all day. You know, dee-dum, ba-ba-ba-dee-do, dee-dum, ba-da-da-dee-da-dee-dum, da-da-da-dee-da-dum. Sing along with the recording, you know, and you know, a couple days of that maybe, you know, at different tempos and different keys maybe, but maybe just one key. And I want to take it down and really define it, you know, for me. And then I want to spend some time grooving over the changes without the sheet, right? That one's a good one to really, if you're thinking about getting tunes that you want to stop using the sheet for and staring at a sheet, and be able to call a tune that you know that's a good one because it stays in C minor for all the A sections, and then the B section drops into the relative major and moves back to C minor. It's a really good one for that. And then I might want to get my solo ideas. I might want to transcribe some solo stuff and just think about, what am I going to am I just going to solo the A sections, you know, or I want to think about, how am I going to get into the bridge, you know, and spend some time, you know. And that might take a whole week. It might even take longer, because the tune of the week for me is not a rule. If I'm really digging in and I don't feel like I've gotten all the way inside, I'm going to go for another week. I don't have to move. And here's the reality. When I do that, and you know, I'm just kind of randomly picking a tune softly out of thin air, all of those C minor ideas that I'm playing on the A section, they're going to work on another tune right off the bat. Other tunes, they're going to work on Blue Bossa, because that starts on C minor, right? So I'm really, although I'm digging deeply into one tune, I'm setting myself up to be able to take down other tunes. But I've got to have a plan too, you know. That's something along with practicing that everybody falls well short. You know, I talk to my students, what's your plan? You know, I was with my high school double bass students yesterday, and I write out their prescription for the week on a Post-it note and say, practice this, and I put it on each piece, and say, that's what you should be doing, you know, because nobody can possibly remember when you're in lessons everything that's being told to you. You know, I used to record my lessons. But it makes me think about it, because I plan what I'm going to practice for the week. On Sunday I look at it and I go, this is what I'm going to work on, and it's not much. That was what Bill Evans said. Someone asked him how much he practiced. He said not much, and he didn't mean time wise. He meant what he was working on. Do I want to write out a chorus of solo, by a saxophonist over softly? Do I want to transcribe what they're doing as far as the bass line? Do I want to, play the head, but play it not lead sheet style, but, the way I think about it, the way other people play it, kind of make it my own. And it involves taking more time just with one thing. But like I said, it translates to other tunes, Let's say if I was working on, let me use another tune, like one of my students is working on Parker's Confirmation, The A sections it starts in F, and the A sections are just 2 5s moving down in descending order in whole steps. We're dealing with that just walking wise. He was like, "What do I do?" And I said, "Really?" I showed him some very stock patterns of walking over those split bar 2 5s that are moving down. And then I said, "This is good for you." I said, because if you did Blues for Alice, another Parker tune, it's a very similar set of chord changes in F. It starts on F, and then it goes E half diminished A to D half diminished G to C minor to F7 to B flat. It's got almost the same structure as Confirmation A sections. So it makes you're solving problems. You don't believe it at first. You think you're only working on one tune, but in a lot of ways you're working on one tune, but you're settling differences with 20 other tunes. So think about that one aspect of it, structuring your practice time just to focus on one thing. I mean, I know you've probably got more than one thing that you're wanting to practice, or maybe you're lucky and you don't. Maybe you're new to the instrument and your instructor or yourself, you're just trying to learn how to do one thing. Well, that's really good. I tell my students that are new to me, I said, you're really in a good position. I said, you don't really know a whole lot, so you really don't have a whole lot to practice except what I'm giving you weekly, so take that down. Now, next week, or in the next episode, I'm going to talk about the use of that time and what I call the term pressing dates, meaning I want to finish this by. We have a lot of open-ended projects. I've got some open-ended arrangements that I really need to finish, and I've put dates on them, because that's the thing. If we don't have somebody, ourselves, dictating when something should be finished, then it kind of hangs around for a while, right? And it takes up headspace. Michael Brecker came and talked to our class once and said something about that, how we had to get rid of all of our compositions that weren't finished, either throw them away or finish them and put them away. So I'll leave that right there, and I'll talk to you next time.